Technology has come a long way since John Barber invented the world's first gas turbine way back in 1791. 3 years later, Thomas Mead refined Barber's idea and came up with the world's first gas engine. And in the same year, Robert Street introduced the concept of using liquid fuel, creating what we now recognize as the internal combustion engine. The same basic principles are still used in motor vehicles today, but amazing minds all over the world have introduced incredible ways of combining different fuels and mechanical parts to bring us truly wondrous creations. In this video, we're celebrating the strangest and most incredible engines in history. The Zvezda M503 is a great place to start. The diesel engine was invented by the Soviet Army during the 1970s. You could originally find Zvezda M503 engines hard at work in the heart of Soviet missile boats, where they were laid in 3 at a time. The 7-bank, 42-cylinder radial engines were incredibly heavy, weighing in at almost 12,000 pounds. Because they weighed so much and were difficult to transport, many believed they would only ever be used on the ground or at sea. A German drag racing team had other ideas. By adapting the engine and replacing the fuel with methanol, they got the weight down to just over 7,000 pounds. The engine is now used in their car, Dragonfire, which is capable of pulling over 4.5 tons. When NASA designs an engine, you already know it's going to be a big deal. Their X3 engine is the biggest of all those big deals. The 500-pound X3 has to be maneuvered using a crane, and it is the latest working example of an ion drive, the space propellant that was once just a science fiction idea. Developed by NASA, working hand in hand with the University of Michigan, the impressive machine has broken all major records during testing. It has a thrust of 5.4 newtons, which is the standard metric for measuring force. The previous record was only 3.3 newtons. It's also demonstrated record power output and operating currents. A ship built around the X3 engine would be capable of traveling more than 20 times faster than any aircraft ever built. Great ideas take time. In the case of Dr. Herbert Hutland's Kugel motor, it's taken over 20 years from the design stage to becoming a reality. Dr. Hutland's revolutionary spherical motor delivers all the power of a traditional combustion engine with less than a third of the moving parts and a quarter of the average weight. At its heart, twin piston heads rock on an axis attached to large titanium ball bearings. Around the outside, an electromagnetic coil is affixed to a spinning magnet. As the engine spins, it generates 74 kilowatts of electricity. That's equivalent to 100 horsepower at 3,000 revolutions per minute. The genius scientist believes he can make it even more efficient with some minor adjustments, and hopes to have a major car manufacturer on board within the next year to build vehicles around it. It's not all about cars, though. How about a sailing ship that's powered by the wind but has no traditional sails? The concept of a turbo sail was tested all the way back in 1924 by German inventor Anton Flettner, but the increasing popularity of ships powered by engines made the idea seem redundant. French oceanographer Jacques Cousteau picked the idea back up in the 1980s and made it workable for the modern age. The principle is simple. Tall circular sails rotate in the wind and work with a small engine to power the ship's propeller. Because the sails are narrow, they can generate power no matter which way the wind is blowing. Testing has proved that they're capable of generating up to 4 times more traction than the very best traditional sails and require 35% less fuel than a traditional engine. Cousteau built a ship called Alcyon to demonstrate the idea, and it caught the attention of many ship manufacturers. Oil company Shell has announced plans to build the world's first turbosail-powered oil tanker, which should be in operation by 2019. Mazda have always been innovators when it comes to rotary engines. They've been trying to include them within their vehicles since the 1960s. Rotary engines do away with all the pistons you'd find in a normal combustion engine and replace them with rotors. The result is a lighter engine with a very high power-to-weight ratio, and the best example of their work so far is the Mazda Wankel engine. Their poor fuel efficiency has made it difficult to create a regular road car featuring the Wankel engine, but the engine has found a home in light aircraft. There was even a single-seater racing class built around it. the Star Mazda Championship. Mazda are still working on improving the engine's fuel efficiency and hope to install it within a new built car in the near future. The Chinese-built EM drive engine has been the subject of rumor and gossip in the technology world for years. The EM drive is a purely electromagnetic thruster. Investors claim that it generates thrust by bouncing compressed microwaves around inside a sealed container, and therefore requires no propellant. Many people believe this to be completely impossible, because producing reaction, this case thrust, without the need for an initial action, like a propeller, breaks Newton's third law of motion. A video released last year by Chinese sources seems to show a working prototype of the machine, but many scientists dismiss it as propaganda. However, if the Chinese really have created a working M drive, it will change the world of propulsion as we know it. The drive would be strong and fast enough to get a spaceship to Mars in around 70 days. The Adams Farwell engine is truly one of a kind. Patented all the way back in 1896, it was fitted to a standard horse-drawn carriage and did away with the need for the horses. It's the earliest known example of a rotary engine running with 3 cylinders, and it was light years ahead of its time. It didn't even need a radiator, thanks to its incredible air-cooled design. The engine and the car that inventor Fay Farwell built around it was the star of the Chicago Auto Show in 1905. He must really have built these engines to last, because one working model still exists today at the National Automobile Museum in Reno, Nevada. Seeing it in working operation is an amazing sight. As Farwell himself used to say, "It spins like a top." Nanotechnology is the science of the future. Machines based on nanotechnology can be put to work inside our own bodies to seek out and repair damaged and diseased cells. Obviously, building a standard engine is no use when you're making machines this small. So scientists got inventive and did something astonishing. They invented an engine that actually runs off DNA. DNA molecules are carriers. They can transport information from one cell to the next. Scientists at the McMaster University have demonstrated that these molecules can actually be programmed to drive around the body. DNA structures can be converted into tiny wheels, with a chemical signal that can be transmitted to act as the stop and go instruction. The implications for medical science are endless, and may one day progress to replace surgery as the standard process for treating many illnesses. Now we go from the very small to the truly gigantic. When you order goods from the other side of the world, someone has to transport those goods to you. A lot of them still come by sea, and scientists are still working on ways to cross the ocean faster than before. That's where the MMerx comes in. It's the largest carrier ship in the entire world. And if you're going to build the world's largest carrier ship, you need the world's largest engine inside it. The Wärtsilä Sulzer engine is 44 feet tall, 90 feet long, and runs on diesel, instead of all the standard parts you'd expect. Camshafts, fuel pumps, and chain gear, it's actually built around technology usually found inside train engines. The engine produces 109,000 horsepower and can get from China to California 4 days faster than any other ship. When an engine is nicknamed the Shockwave, you can just tell it's going to be fast. That's the name given to the Pratt & Whitney J3448 jet engine, which powers the fastest racing truck in the world, taking technology from an airplane and shrinking it down so it fits inside a standard Chevy cab from 1957. The speed it can reach is almost beyond imagination. It holds the world record for speed recorded by a truck, reaching 376 miles per hour. When it's at full acceleration, the Shockwave truck can travel a quarter of a mile in 6.63 seconds. Blink and you'll miss it. As a bonus, how about an engine made entirely from paper? This scale model of the V8 engine is the work of genius inventor Alexei Zollner from Belarus. He took the design of the popular car engine and shrunk it down to the size of a ping pong ball. The tiny pistons are coated in a thin layer of alcohol to keep them moving. And although you can crank it into life using your fingers, it's much more fun to watch it running on compressed air. We're sure you'll agree it's really beautiful.
If testing on a new type of plane engine in the UK is successful, journeys from London to Sydney in Australia may fall from their current 20-hour duration to a more manageable 4. That would mean you could go to the other side of the world and back again in less than half a day. The new technology is known as the Sabre Engine, a hypersonic piece of machinery that's somewhere between a jet and a rocket. It could cut down on journey time by going all the way into space, reaching over 5 times the speed of sound, before powering up rocket mode to propel itself 5 times faster. Such acceleration generates extreme heat inside an engine, which up until now has been a barrier. But the Sabre engine contains a pre-cooling heat exchanger that can lower the temperature of incoming airstreams by 1,000 degrees in less than 1/100th of a second. This is the cutting edge of thermodynamic technology. The city of Sheffield in England is known for its steelworks, and the River Don engine may be the finest achievement in the proud city's history as a manufacturing base. The gigantic 3-cylinder steam engine was put together in 1905, capable of generating 12,000 horsepower with steam pressure of 160 per square inch. It started out as the power behind a rolling mill within the city, but found a grander purpose as the engine room of the British war effort in 1914, creating armor plating for the country's fleet of dreadnought battleships. When war came again in 1939, the River Don was once again invaluable as a source of labor, this time rolling armor for the King George V battleship fleet. During peacetime, the huge production capacity of the veteran engine saw it creating nuclear reactor shields for modern power stations before it finally retired from duty 73 years after the day it was first switched on. It's still spinning away in the Kelham Island Museum, thrilling visitors.